Hi, I'm Jeff. This is Shade Tree Wisdom. I am just a guy who has lived a very difficult life, had a lot of trauma, had a lot of addiction, and I have spent a great deal of time learning how to work my way up and out and over all of these painful things. So I figure I'd try to share some of this back, all this knowledge I've been getting, share it back with the world. Maybe somebody could get some use out of it, right? So the subject I want to talk about in this episode, I guess you call it, is codependency. Codependency is something that is misunderstood. The word's misused a lot, and maybe I could bring a little clarity to it. So codependency, it all is about dealing with your emotional pain by not dealing with it. So you tend to be zeroed in and focused on and selflessly caring for other people. Well, they have a lot of problems and I'm always here for them, and oh, you're so noble, you know, you're always looking out for everybody else. Yes, because you're dodging your own stuff. Hate to break it to you. Not always a noble cause. Codependency is addiction to other people's dysfunction. How about that? Yeah, it's an addictive process. It absolutely is an addictive process. And it gets progressively worse over time. Behaviors happen on a spectrum, and on one end of a spectrum, I am an alcoholic, almost 14 years sober, and I'm also very codependent, and that one's been a deeper and harder subject to understand and try to overcome. So let's say you had some big trauma when you were a kid, whether it was physical abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, abandonment, never knew your dad. It could be any number of things. Watching your parents scream at each other daily, whatever. These things cause a lot. It's huge feelings of stress and hopelessness and powerlessness, and it's too much. It's too much stress. What do you do with that? You know, if you're a kid or a teenager, you're not a very enlightened individual. You're not self-aware. You don't know what to do to deal with that stuff. So you just try to do whatever you can to avoid it, right? I know to deal with a lot of the emotional pain I had, I went drinking and I went running with the party crowd. I blew off my schoolwork and I was rebellious and usually hanging around with very dysfunctional people, it seemed. And all of those things were in an effort, I didn't realize it at the time, but they were an effort to distract me from all my mess. As long as I was distracted dealing with somebody else's mess, I didn't have to deal with mine. And although I didn't know it, that's what I was doing. If you find yourself being surrounded by bossy, controlling, chaotic, messy people, and you feel like you're always in the middle of their mess trying to fix them, trying to undo whatever damage they're doing, giving up your personal time that you ought to be spending taking care of yourself or taking care of your family to deal with somebody else. This is you hurting you, chasing something else. Why are you avoiding you? Because if you spend too much time in your head, it hurts, right? I get it. I've been living it. And so codependency is an addictive process. I'm not a licensed, educated professional. I'm telling you from the school of hard knocks, from the school of life, from everything I've learned, this is my take on it. So take it for what it's worth. So if we realize that we struggle with codependency and we are not taking care of ourselves because we're too busy taking care of other people who are just being messy or mean, what do we do? I mean, this is a huge deal. This is part of your programming, is you've gotten used to taking care of everybody else and ignoring yourself. So what do? Well, the first thing you need to do, make an appointment with a counselor. Counseling will change your life, I'm telling you. And they can help guide you through, you know, steps to make things healthier for you. And so that you're not like your daily battery, like a cell phone battery, you may be burning, I don't know, 30% of it taking care of you and 70% of it taking care of other people's mess who really don't care that you're helping them. Sound familiar? Yeah, so talking to a counselor is a huge important step in learning how to gain some tools to deal with codependency and to break unhealthy cycles so that you can have more peace and be happy and not always just in this stressed out, miserable place worrying about everybody else's BS. They got to take care of themselves. You got to take care of you. Sorry. So another suggestion I could offer is there's a couple of books I read way back when I kind of, I don't know what you call it, started learning about mental health and how to be a healthier person. And one of those books was called Facing Love Addiction. And I think the author's name was Pia Melody. And the other book I read was called Codependent No More. And I believe the author of that book was Melody Beattie, B-E-A-T-T-I-E. And, oh, crossing the paved trail. Been walking in the single track, the mountain bike trails today. It's just so darn pretty back here. It's dry, so there's no mud. Not ruining my shoes. Those books were really good examples of, they gave a lot of examples of patients in a clinical setting, you know, where the authors were talking about, I had this patient and this was going on and this is what we realized and this is how we started dealing with it and this is how they started getting better. Very good books. Facing Love Addiction and Codependent No More. Both of those books, top shelf. Another thing you can do is, I've been talking about this in all these videos because I think it's really, really important. Controlling the inner voice. So let's say you're sitting around the house today and you got no kids there, they're all doing other things. Your significant other is gone or whatever. You got the day to yourself and you are alone with your thoughts. How's it feel? It's a little uncomfortable, isn't it? Makes you want to reach out and act out and do something to distract yourself, doesn't it? Yeah, I get it. I get it. That's why I drank. Something you can do in that situation is kind of like what I believe to be true for dealing with any kind of an addictive feeling, like a craving to act out in an unhealthy manner. You go for a walk, go get in the shower, take a drive and go get yourself a soda at Quick Trip or whatever convenience store you got around you. Quick Trip's life. Call your best friend. Say, look, I'm having a moment. Can I talk to you for a little bit? And of course they'll talk to you, they're your best friend. Finding something healthy to distract yourself with. Recognizing codependent triggers is really hard when you are first kind of becoming aware of it, because codependency is something that, I mean, so much of society just looks at people that are codependent as caretakers, and it's noble and they're great people and they're so generous and charitable. Yes, 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 all those things are true. But at what cost are you being this way? And the answer is, you're not taking care of yourself because you're taking care of everybody else. When you feel like you've had a day and you're beat and you want to sit your tail in your favorite chair and take a nap or read a book or watch your stories on the DVR, whatever, and that crazy friend calls you and they're a mess and they need you to come over, or they need you to take care of this or that or the other. And when you get the feeling when that happens of kind of like dread, kind of like, oh my God, really? When you feel that way, pay attention to it. That means it's not healthy for you. That means something's going on, that somebody's trying to sap your battery and you got nothing left to offer today. And if you do it anyway, you're hurting yourself, right? Can we agree on that? If you're hurting yourself and you're giving away energy that you need for yourself, that's codependency, okay? It's a hard way to live. You think you're being noble. To a point you are. You're helping people that can't help themselves because they're crazy. But as noble as it is, if you're hurting yourself to help other people, that's not noble, that's just hurting yourself. Okay? So, if you feel that you may give too much of yourself to take care of others, and you don't feel like you're taking care of yourself enough, I really want you to take this seriously, because it's a serious deal. Codependency is every bit as harmful, as damaging to you as alcoholism to, say, the alcoholic in your life, if that's your case. If you're the codependent that puts up with the alcoholic that's always creating chaos and messes, you're hurting yourself just as much as they're hurting themselves. And they're hurting you, you know? You're just making it worse. I encourage you to seek out some reading. I encourage you to get on YouTube and start researching codependency. I encourage you to seek out counseling. Talk to a pro. Let somebody help you figure out a better way to live where you're just not drained and depressed and exhausted and feeling like crap about yourself all the time while everybody else is taking every last % out of your battery. Don't do that to yourself. You deserve better than that. All right? Man, it's so pretty out here. This is awesome. Well, let me check my notes here. I usually check my notes, make sure I didn't forget to tell you anything that I had written down about this. Let's see. So, when your emotional pain is very heavy and overwhelming, you have to think of a distraction. So that's kind of where any kind of addiction comes in. And in this case, it's dealing with other people's problems. If you have to constantly deal with someone else's chaos and dysfunction, that means you don't have to deal with yours because you're too busy dealing with theirs. Okay, we covered that. A couple of great books on codependency called Codependent No More and Facing Love Addiction. Talked about that. Seek counseling. Yes, we talked about that. Super important. We learned codependency from our parents. Okay, so basically what that means is that as we were growing up and going through all the things that kind of pushed us into that caretaker role to avoid all the things that were hurting us emotionally, you're basically learning that from your parents. You're seeing your parents' behavior. One of your parents is probably codependent to the other addict. Those trends just repeat over and over and over again in generations and generations. It's really unfortunate. Man, I hope that wasn't a snake. So a lot of times what we learn, we don't even realize we're learning something bad. We're just learning something our parents did. That's the way my mom did it. That's the way my dad did it. And so breaking those cycles is really tough, because this is behavior you've known literally your entire life. That's why these things are so baked in to our programming. That's why it's so hard to change these behaviors, is because you've not known anything else. You always knew unhealthy. That's why it's there. So it's hard to break those cycles. It's possible, but you got to work. And I'm telling you, the work is a worthy investment, because the other side is peace. Isn't that what everybody wants, is peace? I know I do. Well, I guess that's about all I got to say on this subject. Hope you have a peaceful rest of the day. Take care of yourself. Take care of your friends in a healthy way with boundaries. And we'll talk to you later. Oh, don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace.